Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a case that completely blurs the lines between, digital devotion and real-world deception. We're looking at a deeply unsettling story, recently reported by Ranveer Singh for India News, which pieces together how a carefully crafted online persona hid a highly organized and, frankly, sinister criminal operation. It's a stark reminder of the power of the screen, and we're going to break down exactly how it all happened.
So, here is the big question. How exactly does a mechanical engineer from one of the country's top universities end up building a dangerous cult? I mean, when we think of alleged cult leaders, we usually picture these isolated, fringe figures with mysterious pasts, right? Not highly educated young professionals. But the facts of this investigation are going to challenge literally all of those preconceptions.
The contradiction here is just incredibly jarring. On one hand, we have Abhishek Mishra. He's a 29-year-old guy from Odisha who holds a degree in mechanical engineering from the prestigious IIT Roorkee. But as male reporters began pulling together images from his videos and related Google pictures to report on this crime, a completely different identity emerged: Adikarta Narayan. It is so hard to wrap your head around how an educated young man could operate under such a deceptive religious alias, allegedly just to prey on others.
Section 1. The Facade. From Engineer to Godman.
Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds. To understand how he managed this dual life, we've got to look at the physical groundwork Mishra laid. Between 2017 and 2021, he was studying at IIT Roorkee. But roughly 4 years ago, he packed up and moved to the Radhakunj area of Mathura. He started out in a rented place before eventually building his own house there. It's this incredibly rapid, chronological descent from a prestigious university student to someone methodically setting the stage for his eventual arrest.
Section 2. The Bait. Weaponizing platforms.
Once that physical stage in Mathura was set, Mishra needed an audience. So, what did he do? He weaponized digital platforms to cast a massive net. He basically blended traditional religious practices with modern professional networking. Presenting himself as a Kathavachak, like a religious storyteller, he ran a YouTube channel called Radha Kripa Amrita, delivering sermons in both Hindi and English. But here's the catch. Alongside this, he maintained a totally professional profile on LinkedIn under his assumed name. And according to the police, this wasn't just about building a general following. He was using these standard, everyday platforms to specifically pinpoint and target young women, especially those with engineering backgrounds. He was likely leveraging his own IIT credentials to build that initial crucial trust.
Section 3. The Trap. Anatomy of Manipulation.
Now, the police investigation details a deeply calculated grooming process designed to completely dismantle a victim's independence. Step 1 was digital contact, using those YouTube sermons to reach out and hook them. Step 2, isolation. He would gradually, slowly manipulate these women into cutting ties with their own families. Then Step 3, relocation. He'd convince them to physically pack up and move into his residence in Mathura. And finally, Step 4, the absolute most sinister phase, involving spiked prasad and subsequent blackmail. This is a literal textbook breakdown of how victims are systematically ensnared, cut off from outside help, and brainwashed to stay loyal.
To lock down even more control over these women, he twisted cultural traditions. A Gandharva Viva is one of the 8 classical types of Hindu marriage, and it's traditionally based on love and mutual consent. But here is the really messed up part. Police say Mishra used the proposal of a Gandharva Viva not as a true union of consent, but as a completely false religious pretext. He used it to justify and normalize his sexual exploitation of these women once he had them firmly under his influence.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer scale. 24. Police report that at the height of his operation, approximately 24 young men and women were living together in his Mathura residence. So this wasn't just an isolated incident with 1 or 2 people. No, he had successfully built a localized, tightly controlled community where his word was absolute law.
And the reality of living inside that house was horrific. It involved severe, systematic abuse. The police allege that Mishra gave his victims milk laced with intoxicants, pretending it was prasad, a sacred religious offering. Once the victims were incapacitated, he would sexually assault them and record the acts. Those secretly recorded obscene photographs and videos, which have actually since been recovered from his phone, were then used as leverage. And he didn't just blackmail the victims to keep them compliant, he allegedly went as far as extorting money from their families too.
Section 4. The Fall. The cult collapses.
Like pretty much any structure built entirely on coercion, this carefully constructed house of cards eventually crumbled from the inside out. Police sources note that even his own mother, who had initially lived with him, packed up and left. His conduct was reportedly so bad that his own family abandoned the house he'd built. Then, about 6 months prior to his arrest, the family of one of the women actually showed up at the house to rescue her and take her home, which led to this massive ruckus created by Mishra and his associates. As time went on, that initial brainwashing started wearing off. Most of the people living with him grew suspicious of his behavior, and one by one, they just quietly packed up and left.
But people quietly leaving isn't what ultimately brought the police to his door. The real catalyst here was action. It took the incredible bravery of one young woman from Chusgata who finally stepped forward to file a formal complaint. That single, official action is what triggered the whole police investigation, leading directly to Abhishek Mishra's arrest and a formal rape case being registered against him. It really highlights how absolutely vital it is for victims to be heard by the authorities to stop these cycles of abuse.
And that brings us to a really critical question to chew on. Are we just way too trusting of the spiritual and professional personas we meet online? When an IIT engineering degree and a slick LinkedIn profile can be so seamlessly blended with a YouTube persona to lure educated people into a literal trap, we really have to reevaluate how we consume digital identities. The screen is such a powerful filter for deception. What you should definitely take away from this explainer is a renewed sense of vigilance about exactly who we trust on the other side of our devices. Thanks so much for joining me to unpack this story. Stay curious, and please, stay safe out there.